The world held its breath. War raged across continents, a consuming fire that threatened to engulf everything. And deep within the heart of a nation grappling with unimaginable loss, a secret was brewing. A secret so profound, so terrifying, it would forever alter the course of human history. This is the story of the Manhattan Project. Imagine a time before the mushroom cloud, before the chilling specter of nuclear annihilation hung over our heads. Science was a beacon of progress, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. But in the crucible of World War II, that same science was about to be weaponized in a way no one could have predicted. The year is 1939. The world is teetering on the brink. In Europe, Adolf Hitler's Nazi regime was on the march. Nations fell with terrifying speed, and a growing fear began to grip the scientific community. What if Germany, with its brilliant physicists, was already on the verge of unlocking a weapon of unimaginable power? A weapon that could change the outcome of the war. A weapon that could unleash an unprecedented level of destruction. This fear wasn't unfounded. Scientists, many of them refugees fleeing persecution in Europe, understood something few others did. They understood the immense power locked within the atom. They knew about nuclear fission, the process where an atom's nucleus splits, releasing a tremendous amount of energy, and they realized, with a dawning horror, that this energy could potentially be harnessed for a bomb. A bomb unlike any seen before. One name looms large in this early period: Albert Einstein. While not directly involved in the project's day-to-day operations, his theories laid the groundwork. His famous equation, E=mc², revealed the fundamental relationship between energy and mass. It was a glimpse into the universe's deepest secrets, and for some, it was a warning. It was a letter, penned by Leo Szilard, a Hungarian physicist, and signed by Einstein himself, that truly jolted the American government into action. Addressed to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, it detailed the potential for a new type of bomb, a super bomb, and the urgent need for the United States to develop its own. The letter warned that if Germany got such a weapon first, the consequences would be catastrophic. Roosevelt, a man who understood the gravity of war, listened. He established a committee, the Advisory Committee on Uranium, to investigate. But progress was slow. The idea of a bomb so powerful seemed almost fantastical. It was a concept from science fiction, not reality. Yet the whispers of atomic power continued. Scientists like Enrico Fermi, who would later achieve the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, were already conducting crucial research. They were pushing the boundaries of what was known, driven by both scientific curiosity and a growing sense of urgency. The war in Europe was escalating. The stakes were getting higher. By 1941, the United States was still officially neutral, but the winds of war were blowing strong. The fear of a Nazi atomic bomb persisted. The Advisory Committee's reports grew more alarming. The idea of a weapon that could devastate entire cities was no longer a distant possibility. It was a looming threat. What do you do when you're faced with an enemy that might possess a weapon beyond your comprehension? You fight fire with fire. You race against time. And you do it in absolute secrecy. This is where the true scale of the Manhattan Project begins to emerge. It wasn't just a research project. It was an industrial and scientific undertaking of unprecedented magnitude. It required vast resources, brilliant minds, and a level of secrecy that would make even the most seasoned spy blush. The project was officially launched in 1942, its mission to design and build an atomic bomb. The name itself, the Manhattan Project, was a deliberate misdirection, a way to obscure the true nature of the work being done. It was a vast, sprawling enterprise, spread across multiple sites, each with its own critical role. The key players were assembled. Scientists, engineers, technicians, soldiers, all united by a common goal, though few understood the full picture. General Leslie Groves was appointed military head of the project. Groves was a man of immense drive and organizational skill. He was tasked with taking a theoretical concept and turning it into a tangible weapon, all while keeping it hidden from the world. Groves faced an enormous challenge. How do you build a bomb that had never been built before? How do you find enough of the rare materials needed? How do you recruit thousands of people without them knowing what they were truly working on? The answer lay in sheer determination and an incredible mobilization of American industrial might. The project would require enormous quantities of uranium, but natural uranium contains only a small percentage of the fissile isotope U-235, the key ingredient for a bomb. Isolating this isotope was a monumental task. Two primary methods were pursued: gaseous diffusion and electromagnetic separation. These processes were incredibly complex and energy-intensive. Huge, sprawling facilities were built, most famously at Oak Ridge, Tennessee. These sites were like cities in themselves, employing tens of thousands of people, many of whom had no idea what they were producing. They were told they were working on a new type of war material, a vital contribution to the Allied effort. Imagine the sheer scale of it: miles of pipes, massive machinery, all humming with activity, all shrouded in the strictest secrecy. The men and women working there were sworn to silence. Their lives were dedicated to a cause they only partially understood. Meanwhile, another crucial element was being developed: plutonium. Plutonium, a man-made element, was even more suitable for a bomb than U-235. But producing it was even more challenging. It required nuclear reactors. The first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction was achieved by Enrico Fermi and his team in Chicago on December 1742, beneath the stands of an old football stadium at the University of Chicago. This was a pivotal moment. It proved that a controlled chain reaction was possible, a critical step towards a bomb. From this experiment, larger reactors were built. The most significant was at Hanford, Washington. These reactors were designed to bombard uranium with neutrons, creating plutonium. The process was complex and dangerous, involving the handling of radioactive materials. Again, massive facilities were constructed, and thousands of workers were employed, all under a veil of intense secrecy. But the heart of the bomb design was happening elsewhere. At Los Alamos, New Mexico, a remote, windswept mesa became the site of the project's scientific brain. This was where the actual bomb was to be designed and built. J. Robert Oppenheimer, a brilliant and enigmatic theoretical physicist, was chosen to lead the Los Alamos laboratory. Oppenheimer was a man of contradictions. He was a gifted scientist with a deep understanding of physics, but also someone with a complex personal life and a sometimes troubled past. He was charismatic and inspiring, able to rally the brightest minds from around the world. The scientists at Los Alamos were tasked with an almost impossible mission: to figure out how to assemble a critical mass of fissile material in such a way that it would explode with unimaginable force. It was a race against the clock, against the unknown, and against the potential for failure. They worked in a secluded environment, cut off from the outside world. The pressure was immense. They knew that their work could end the war, but they also knew the terrifying, destructive power they were trying to unleash. Imagine the intellectual debates, the late-night discussions, the sheer intensity of the scientific effort. They were pushing the boundaries of physics and engineering, creating entirely new technologies as they went. Two main bomb designs were being pursued. One, codenamed Thin Man, was based on a gun-type assembly. The idea was to fire one piece of fissile material into another, creating a critical mass. This design was deemed suitable for uranium. The other design, codenamed Fat Man, was more complex. It involved implosion. A subcritical mass of fissile material would be surrounded by conventional explosives. When detonated, these explosives would compress the fissile material, forcing it into a critical state and triggering a nuclear explosion. This design was necessary for plutonium, as it was more prone to pre-detonation. The challenges were immense. How do you precisely detonate conventional explosives to achieve the required compression? How do you handle highly radioactive plutonium safely? These were questions that had never been answered before. The scientists and engineers at Los Alamos worked tirelessly. They conducted countless experiments, ran complex simulations, and debated every detail. They were a melting pot of talent, from physicists like Richard Feynman, known for his unconventional approach, to mathematicians and engineers from every corner of the globe. The stakes couldn't have been higher. The world was locked in a brutal conflict. The outcome of the war, and indeed the future of humanity, rested on the success of this clandestine operation. As the project progressed, the secrecy deepened. The sheer number of people involved was staggering, yet the knowledge of the bomb's ultimate purpose was limited to a very select few. Information was compartmentalized. Each worker knew only what they needed to know to do their job. This was essential to prevent leaks, but it also created an atmosphere of mystery and speculation. What were they really building? What was this powerful new weapon that required such vast resources and such intense secrecy? The rumors were rampant, but the truth was locked away, guarded by an impenetrable wall of security. The pressure mounted. The war in Europe was drawing to a close, but the Pacific theater remained a brutal struggle. The question of whether the bomb would even be needed, or if it would be used, loomed large. The culmination of years of secret work, immense sacrifice, and unparalleled scientific achievement was fast approaching. The world was on the cusp of a new era, an era defined by the power of the atom. The question now was, what would that era look like? And who would control this terrifying new force? The fate of the world hung in the balance. The war raged on, a consuming inferno that scorched the earth across continents, and within its fiery crucible, a new and terrifying form of power was being painstakingly forged. The immense industrial complexes at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, and Hanford, Washington, hummed with a relentless, almost sentient energy, a testament to burgeoning American might and a chilling, world-altering secret. At Oak Ridge, the electromagnetic separation plants, collectively known as YH-12, were less like factories and more like colossal metallic leviathans. Their interiors were a dizzying, intricate labyrinth of gleaming pipes, massive tanks, and cavernous processing units, all meticulously engineered to painstakingly, almost surgically, tease apart the infinitesimally subtle differences between uranium isotopes. Workers, a staggering force of some 75,000 souls by the project's zenith, toiled in grueling, round-the-clock shifts. Their days were a monotonous symphony of the incessant drone of machinery, the hiss and gurgle of chemical processes, and the ever-present insidious threat of unseen radiation. Their ultimate purpose, the true meaning of their labor, was deliberately obscured by layers of impenetrable compartmentalization and the unwavering, ever-vigilant gaze of military security. They were, in essence, cogs in a vast, unseen engine of unimaginable consequence, their individual contributions mere puzzle pieces lost within the grand, unspoken, and terrifying design. Miles away, in the stark, windswept, and seemingly desolate landscape of Washington state, the Hanford Engineer Works was a monumental testament to human endeavor, rising from the unforgiving desert like a defiant titan. Here, the scientific and industrial focus shifted to a different, equally potent element: plutonium. Enrico Fermi's groundbreaking achievement, The first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction, a moment of profound scientific revelation, achieved in the improbable confines of a squash court beneath the stands of Stagg Field at the University of Chicago in December 1942, had irrevocably confirmed the theoretical possibility of unlocking atomic energy. However, the practical production of plutonium, the fissile element absolutely crucial for the development of the more advanced implosion-type bomb, demanded the construction of enormous, purpose-built nuclear reactors. These behemoths of concrete and steel were designed to breed the precious fissile material from ordinary uranium. 3 such reactors, each a potential source of unimaginable power, were constructed at Hanford. Each, in its operation, spewed forth a steady stream of radioactive waste into the mighty Columbia River, a grim and ominous consequence that the scientists understood with chilling clarity, but which remained largely unknown to the vast majority of the workers. The sheer, unadulterated scale of these operations was staggering, an industrial undertaking that dwarfed anything humanity had ever conceived or executed before, all meticulously cloaked in an impenetrable, suffocating wall of secrecy. But the true heart of this nascent atomic beast, the hallowed ground where abstract physics would be hammered and refined into a tangible, world-shattering weapon, lay nestled in the remote, high desert of New Mexico. Perched atop a majestic mesa, a place that had once been consecrated by the sacred rituals of Native American peoples for millennia, Los Alamos was born from a singular, audacious directive from General Leslie Groves, the iron-fisted military director of the Manhattan Project. He envisioned a scientific sanctuary, a secluded intellectual crucible where the nation's most brilliant minds could convene, isolated from the prying eyes and ears of the rest of the world, free to wrestle with the most complex, intricate, and potentially perilous scientific and engineering challenges imaginable. The location, chosen for its profound remoteness, its natural defensibility, and its stark, austere beauty, became known to its inhabitants simply, and with a touch of mystique, as Site Y. J. Robert Oppenheimer, a physicist of extraordinary intellect, a man possessed of a captivating, if sometimes enigmatic, personality, was tapped to lead this intellectual forge. He was a figure who seemed to embody the very paradox of the project itself, capable of profound, soaring, abstract thought, yet tasked with the creation of a weapon of unparalleled, unimaginable destruction. Oppenheimer, with his keen intellect and his remarkable ability to inspire, assembled a veritable constellation of scientific luminaries, a vibrant and volatile melting pot of diverse talents. There were Nobel laureates, their minds already etched with the Nobel Prize, alongside young, prodigious talents, brilliant theorists who lived in the realm of pure thought, and meticulous experimentalists, their hands dedicated to the tangible world of apparatus and data. They were all drawn from the hallowed halls of universities and the cutting-edge research institutions across the Allied world. Among them was Richard Feynman, a young, fiercely intelligent mathematician, already known for his highly unconventional, often playful, approach to problem-solving and his uncanny ability to cut through the most complex theoretical knots with startling, almost dazzling clarity. Life at Los Alamos was a strange, unique, and often disorienting blend of intense, all-consuming scientific pursuit and an almost monastic, enforced isolation. The scientists and their families lived in hastily constructed, functional housing, the stark, breathtaking beauty of the New Mexico landscape, a constant, if sometimes unwelcome, companion. They formed a community unto themselves, bound together not only by the shared intellectual endeavor, but also by the immense, unspoken pressure of their clandestine task. The days were long, arduous, and filled with impassioned debates, grueling calculations, meticulous experiments, and the inevitable, frustrating failures that are the hallmark of pioneering scientific work. The very air seemed to crackle with an almost tangible intellectual energy. A constant, vibrant hum of minds working at the very bleeding edge of human understanding, pushing the boundaries of what was known and what was possible. The challenges they faced were, in a word, immense. Designing a bomb that could harness the terrifying, unleashed power of nuclear fission was not simply an exercise in theoretical physics. It was an engineering nightmare of unprecedented complexity. The uranium bomb, initially conceived as a simpler gun-type design, involved the audacious concept of firing one piece of meticulously enriched uranium into another, thereby achieving a critical mass that would initiate a chain reaction. However, the more sophisticated plutonium bomb, which promised greater efficiency and potentially greater destructive power, required an intricate implosion mechanism. This involved the precisely timed detonation of conventional explosives, carefully shaped into almost perfect spheres, to compress a subcritical sphere of plutonium into a supercritical state. This implosion design, far more elegant and potentially far more powerful, proved to be a devilishly difficult problem, demanding an almost impossible level of symmetry and precision in the explosive lenses. Oppenheimer, with his sharp analytical mind and his uncanny ability to inspire loyalty and push his teams to their absolute limits, navigated the intricate, often volatile web of scientific personalities and towering egos. He drove his teams relentlessly, demanding perfection and innovation. Yet he also possessed a profound understanding of the immense psychological toll that their work was exacting. He recognized that the very nature of their endeavor, the creation of such a destructive force, weighed heavily on the consciences of many, even as the urgent existential threat of the war provided a powerful, unifying motivation. They were, in a profound and unsettling sense, fighting fire with fire, creating a weapon of unimaginable power to combat an enemy that threatened to unleash its own horrific barbarism upon the world. As the year 1943 bled into 1944, the project gained an unstoppable, inexorable momentum. The vast humming industrial machinery of Oak Ridge and Hanford churned out the precious, highly enriched fissile materials, a slow, painstakingly laborious process that nonetheless yielded the essential ingredients for the bombs. At Los Alamos, the abstract designs for both the uranium bomb, codenamed Thin Man, a designation later changed to Little Boy when the design underwent significant modification, and the more complex plutonium bomb, codenamed Fat Man, began to take tangible shape. The theoretical had to become practical. The abstract equations scribbled on blackboards had to be translated into a stark, physical reality that could unleash unprecedented devastation. The secrecy surrounding the entire endeavor was absolute, a suffocating shroud that enveloped every aspect of the operation. Workers at all sites were sworn to an oath of silence, their lives compartmentalized to such an extreme degree that they knew only their immediate, specific task, never grasping the ultimate, terrifying goal. Security was paramount, a constant vigilant concern. Military police patrolled the perimeters of these vast complexes, their presence a visible deterrent, while intelligence officers meticulously scrutinized every interaction, every whispered word, hunting for any hint of enemy espionage. The fear of infiltration, particularly from Nazi Germany, was a constant, gnawing anxiety that permeated the atmosphere. Information was disseminated on a strict need-to-know basis, creating an almost impenetrable wall of compartmentalization that ensured that no single individual, short of the very highest echelons of leadership, truly understood the full, horrifying scope of the Manhattan Project. This was a clandestine operation of unprecedented magnitude, a nation secretly and deliberately building a weapon of mass destruction in the deepest shadows, driven by the chilling specter of a world where such a weapon might fall into the wrong, malevolent hands. The immense weight of that responsibility, the profound knowledge that they stood on the precipice of something that would irrevocably, and perhaps tragically, alter the course of human history, settled heavily upon the shoulders of the men and women who toiled, often in ignorance of their ultimate purpose, in these hidden, forgotten corners of America. The culmination of this immense clandestine undertaking arrived not with a whisper, but with a blinding flash and a thunderous roar. On July 16,